Hey guys, it's Byron here and welcome to Byron's Reviews. Today I am joined by somebody very special, the writer and director of American Warships, A.E. Apocalypse Earth, Mutant Vampire Zombies from the Hood, and the writer of a little series you may have heard of called Sharknado. It is Thunder Levin, people. How you doing, Thunder?
I'm great, Byron. Thanks for having me.
No problem. So, first of all, these first few questions I'm going to ask are basically surrounded around the asylum in general, because I'm in the process of making a little kind of documentary style thing about them. And the first question is, what are the main differences between making an asylum film and making a film for another company or off your own bat?
Well, I guess the biggest difference is that the asylum doesn't spend a lot of money. These are obviously low-budget films. And the other difference for me, for the films I've made for them that I've directed, have been the fact that they're mockbusters. And you try not to think about that when you're actually making the movie. You don't want to be making a copy or a knockoff of somebody else's movie. At least I don't. That doesn't interest me.
Yeah.
But you know in the end that it's going to be marketed that way. So that's a bit different. Also the speed with which they're made. These movies are made very quickly. I'm just finishing up a new film for the Asylum, and I wrote it in a week. We shot it in 10 days, and we've edited it in 3 weeks. So from concept to release will probably be about 4 months, whereas another film might take a year or 2 years, or for a big studio film, maybe even 3 years. So those are the real differences.
That film's Geo Disaster, right?
It is, yes.
Nice. Okay, and I think I have a question about that later on. What's your opinion on some of the common stigmas around the asylum, or the asylum's reputation that it's kind of claimed over the years?
It's a good question. Why don't you tell me what the reputation is, and I'll tell you what I think about it.
Alright, I'd say the reputation is that mostly people complain about, I guess, them having bad, low-budget special effects, or even things that they're made, I guess, solely to a rip-off on something and to kind of scam people in a way.
Right, right. Yeah, like I said, that's part of the marketing thing, and I don't know. If it were up to me, we'd be making original movies, and they are original movies. The truth is that the whole mockbuster thing is really just the title of the film and the marketing campaign. The films we're not making rip-offs or copies of studio movies. At least I'm not, and I don't think many of the other filmmakers there are. That's a marketing thing and a business thing, and it's the way it's a niche they've managed to exploit to stay in business. And so my response is there's a certain amount of legitimacy to those complaints, but if they didn't do that, they might not be in business at all. And then a lot of people who are trying to get into the business might never get into it. A lot of people who are trying to hone their craft so that they have an opportunity to work on bigger films might never have the opportunity. The Asylum is filling the niche that Roger Corman used to fill.
Yeah. And
I think it's an important thing. It's like a stepping stone between film school and Hollywood. So I think it's important that they exist. I understand the complaints, but the truth is we don't have a lot of blockbuster video anymore. We don't have video stores. So you don't have grandma going to the store to rent a movie for you, seeing something that looks almost the same and taking that one by mistake. That just doesn't happen anymore. I think people watching asylum movies know what they're watching now. And so I think some of those complaints are probably a thing of the past, or at least they should be.
Yeah, I've heard people say the example of grandma going to the video store so many times, and I do get it, but at the same time, I agree with what you're saying in that basically, I think David Michael Out once said something along the lines of many movie studios kind of rip off other films. The Asylum is just a lot less subtle about it.
Right,
Which
that's
I
true.
think is, yeah, there's a lot of stuff to that. Okay,
As to add special effects, they're making these effects. They're doing almost the number of effects in a movie and complexity that a studio film will have hundreds, if not thousands, of people working on for a year.
yeah.
And the Asylum is doing it with less than 10 people in 3 weeks.
Mm,
So yeah, they're not as good as they could be, but it's not because the people aren't talented. It's because they're doing it so fast. So I think the effects are largely in keeping with the other production values, with the budget of the film,
mm-hmm.
and and if you look at some of their best effects, they're actually damn good. I mean, some
Yeah.
of the tornado stuff in Sharknado has been very impressive.
Mm,
In American warships, we had a shot of the B-2 bombers flying at night, and I thought that was as good as anything I'd seen in studio films. So sometimes they have things that they're able to put the time in and do them really well.
yeah, yeah. On the topic of American warships, I think that film was what made you really learn what the Asylum and their special effects kind of situation was like.
Yeah, I mean, I went into that film expecting one thing when I shot it, because that was a movie where I was shooting everything looking in,
Mm-hmm.
and all the action really was happening out there,
Yeah.
behind the camera. So we had to turn the camera around, and that was all going to be visual effects. What's going on out there, and yeah, those shots did not really live up to what I had envisioned. And it changed the way I made future Asylum films, in that I realized what their capabilities were and what their limitations were, and I tried to work within them. I've done that. I did that on AE especially,
Yeah.
and I'm doing that now on Geo Disaster. I did not do that on Sharknado. Sharknado was very much we're gonna throw everything at you, and it'll just be what it is. And on the first one, it just was what it was, and it didn't matter. And the fact that it was pretty cheesy seemed to endear it to the audiences. And now for all the sequels, the effects department has just understood that they're gonna have to crank it up each time, and make it bigger and better. And in truth, a lot of the Asylum's resources, since Sharknado became a big hit, the resources at the Asylum have shifted, and Sharknado takes up a much larger portion of everybody's time. And in fact, as I'm finishing up Geo Disaster, we have had to wait because they're still finalizing shots for Sharknado 5.
All right. Yeah.
And so that's been a little frustrating. But now they're finally starting on my film, and so and from what I've seen so far, it's looking pretty good.
Great. Well, I'm definitely looking forward to that to see that. And before I move on to another question, I just want to say about the first Sharknado. I will say that the Ferris wheel effect. I think that actually looks really, really good. And I think that is like
Yeah.
well up to the standards of like other bigger studios. It's kind of surprised by
Sure.
that.
Yeah, I think a lot of them did. And the fun thing about the Ferris wheel is that I didn't write that sequence. That wasn't even originally going to be in the movie. But then they did the poster before Anthony ever shot the film, and he saw that and he said, "Hey, let's put that in the movie."
Oh,
So it
wow.
was really because of the marketing people that the Ferris wheel is in there.
Wow, that's amazing. I never knew that. If you could remake any one of your films with a huge Hollywood budget, like uh, $100 or $200 million, which one would you pick and why? And this can be like any of your films.
probably American Warships. I think what I shot on set was a whole level better than people's impression of the film, and I think that's because of the visual effects.
Yeah,
And
I
so
really
if
like that film though, I have to say. I probably slightly prefer it to AE even, and I like both those films.
Thank you. I mean, I like it too, but I think the general impression of it is that it's a bit cheesy and campy, and that largely comes from the visual effects. Um, I think we had a better film than Universal's Battleship. I think we had a better story, better acting, better characters. Right. Battleship was not a very good film, to be honest. Um, and I think we made what would have been a better movie if we'd had a bit more money. There were a lot of strange angles I was forced to do because we were shooting on a battleship that was surrounded by a city. And if I'd been able to put green screen around the edges of the ship so that I could shoot off the side, and we could add in water afterwards, that I think it would have made a lot of difference. It would have been a lot better film.
Right,
But of
yeah.
course, I'd like to have done all my films with a big budget. So.
Yeah. Yeah, that's what I really like about a lot of Asylum filmmakers, such as yourself, in that they don't, to a large extent, a lot of these people don't tend to let the low budget stop them, and it's just so much ambition that I really like to see, really.
Well, there are two different approaches to making a low budget film. You can either make a big budget film and have it look cheap, or you can have a smaller vision and do that well. And obviously, the Asylum encourages you to go big, and that's what I did with American Warships, and that's obviously what happened with Sharknado. On AE, I was feeling a little burned from American Warships not being perceived the way I wanted it to, and so I tried to make something smaller. I tried to make something within the realms of what could be done well there. But the other thing about the Asylum is they don't want you to use humor. They don't want it to be tongue-in-cheek ever. And my feeling when I made Mutant Vampire Zombies from the Hood was I knew we didn't have a lot of resources. I knew it was going to be very low budget. And so my feeling was, first, let's not do anything that we can't do well. And second, since it might end up being a little cheesy anyhow, and the audience might laugh, let's get them laughing with us instead of at us.
Yeah.
And I intentionally put a sense of humor into it, and I think that's what worked for Sharknado too. What's interesting about this film I'm just making now, Geo Disaster, is that it's a big disaster film, but it's actually a very small personal movie. It's a family drama basically set against the backdrop of a huge disaster. And so I got to really focus on performance and characters and drama a lot more than I have on my other Asylum films. And it was a pleasant and enjoyable opportunity.
Nice. Well, I'm really looking forward to see that. That sounds awesome. What does it take to get a television distribution deal for an independent film?
A miracle. I still haven't gotten Mutant Vampire Zombies from the Hood distributed on TV in the States, despite Sharknado. You would think when Sharknado blew up, some TV station would have said, "Oh, let's get the first film from the writer of Sharknado." But it's a lot harder than you would think. And one of the good things about making movies for the Asylum is your film will be seen. You know it will get out there because they have all their distribution deals in place. As far as doing it for a truly independent film, that's tough. I don't know what the answer is to that.
Yeah. I think I know what you're going to say with this one, but I'm going to ask it because I'm curious. Would you...
Then I'll have to pick up something completely unexpected.
Well, we'll see. Would you call yourself a B-movie filmmaker?
No.
I thought that was
No.
going to be the answer.
I'm a big studio filmmaker working on vastly reduced budgets.
Yeah, that makes sense. And I guess that really shows in your films, because they're really ambitious, and as I said, that's what I love.
And hopefully that won't last. Hopefully I will become a big studio filmmaker making big studio films. We'll have to see.
Well, I from the films I've seen of yours, which is pretty much all of them, I think, I think you're more than capable of that. So hopefully one day you'll get a film like that.
Working on it.
Has there been a movie you've pitched or suggested to the Asylum that they've deemed too out there or crazy?
Well, I mean, it's an interesting process, you know, the back and forth of developing movies, and you know, I might pitch them 100 ideas. So there've been plenty that they probably thought were too ridiculous. I pitched them a sequel to Mutant Vampire Zombies from the Hood.
Was it
called
Ninja Pirate Werewolves in Space?
Yes.
I was actually going to ask about that later on, but yeah.
And they wouldn't go for it. And admittedly, I did it half-heartedly because I didn't really want them owning the sequel to my film. So I would have wanted to do some kind of co-production or something, and they don't really do that.
Yeah.
But that was a pretty odd pitch.
Yeah, it's...
I don't know if I've ever pitched them anything that's out there too much. Because I know what they're looking for, and so I've tried to, you know, keep it within the realm of what they might do. There was this movie Sharknado that was pretty out there.
It was, definitely, and it's a good thing it was, because I think that's one of the most fun things about the movie. You've probably been asked this question a lot, but is there any particular reason that you didn't write Sharknado 5?
You know, it's not one particular thing. There were a bunch of things going on at the time. I had another writing job that was going to pay me, frankly, more money, and the schedules kind of conflicted.
Right. Yeah.
And at the same time, I felt like 4 was enough, and I should try other things. And I have spent the last year developing a couple of TV projects and an independent feature project, and they haven't gone as quickly as I would have hoped, but that year has not been wasted because I've been laying the groundwork to get other projects done. So I mean, that's, you know, there's no one particular thing. It just seemed like it was time to move on and do other things. I do wish that we had been able to go global one movie sooner.
Yeah.
Because I would have liked to have done that. I wanted to go to London and Australia and Rome and all these places. You know, I really wanted a scene in the Colosseum in Rome where Finn was fighting sharks bare-chested like a gladiator.
Yes.
You know, and so now that will never be.
Yeah.
But it just seemed like time. And I don't know that doesn't mean I won't, you know, go back to Sharknado someday. I mean, it'll be interesting to see how people react to the 5th one.
Yeah.
It's by far, I've seen some of it, and it's by far the biggest looking, most expensive looking Sharknado yet. And so it might blow people away, and they'll say, "Oh, we don't need that Levin guy." Or maybe it's strayed further from its roots. We'll have to see how people take to it. It's also a bit darker than the previous movies. So it looks great. It looks amazing. I mean, the opening sequence, Anthony showed me the opening sequence last week, and I was like, damn, I wish I'd done that. You know, because it's really impressive.
Well,
we'll see. And it's a lot of fun. I mean, Scotty Mullen from what I've seen, and I've only seen pieces of it, Scotty managed to maintain the sense of fun that I had developed for the series. Um, so so we'll see how people take to it. Hopefully, there will continue to be Sharknadoes, and and never say never. I might be back.
Okay, this next question kind of links to the last one, but I know in the past you've talked about a 7-movie plan for Sharknado that you proposed to Sci-Fi. Is that did anything happen with that? Is that still going ahead, or?
No, no, and honestly, that was probably another part of me moving on, is that they chose not to follow that arc that I had set up. Um, they've took some elements of it. I mean, there are things that they've put in place in number 5 that will go in a sort of a similar direction, but it's not the 3-movie arc that I set up and proposed. So no, I mean, there'll be parts of some of my ideas will be getting in there, but it's not exactly what I suggested.
Okay. And I'm not sure if you're able to say this next bit, but in terms of the things from that 7-movie story arc you suggested, and the parts that maybe not taken forward, are you able to say some of those ideas you had, or is that a bit not okay?
Well, I probably shouldn't.
Okay,
I mean,
that's fine.
I mean, in a couple of years when we see where it goes, maybe maybe I can start talking about that. But who knows? Because I mean, if I were to come back, maybe parts of that would end up being used. Because the way they end number 5, I think I would actually be able to then put in a lot of what I was talking about. So no, I probably shouldn't talk about that. It would spoil it for people.
All right, that's fair enough. Okay, so about Geo Disaster, I know you've said some things about it already, but is there anything else in general you'd like to say about it, or would you like to tell people what they can expect from Geo Disaster?
Well, it's the story of a family who are separated during a major global disaster, and it's about how they have to survive and find their way back to each other. And interestingly, what it really is, it's a story. It's a story as much about family dynamics as it is about disaster. And I think it will be. I think if people give it a chance, they will find themselves really involved with the characters. We got some great performances, and it's a more substantial drama than my previous films.
Wow. Well, I'm really interested to see that, because I think a lot of your films do follow the theme of family, and I think you handle them in the past really well. Like I guess with Sharknado, when all that's about, when all is said and done, is Finn trying to kind of rebuild his family, and then these Sharknadoes just come about and ruin everything. And then in like AE Apocalypse Earth, obviously Adrian Paul's character, his motivation throughout the film is wanting to like go back to Earth to see basically his family and his daughter and stuff like that. So I think that is a theme you've done really well. So I'm really looking forward to see how that goes in Geo Disaster.
Thank you. Yeah, I mean, it was an interesting opportunity to sort of channel my inner teenager, because there's a lot of teenager versus parent drama going on, and at the same time there's a father who's about the same age as I am now. So it was very much my teenage self talking to my adult self, and the two trying to communicate. And it's the teenage characters trying to find where they belong in the world, and the the adult characters who are passing into middle age, trying to explain all the compromises and changes that life puts you through to get to that place, and do it all while the world is ending. So it's also about, as a lot of my films are, it's about preparedness and survival.
Semper Paratus.
Semper Paratus. And that's actually, I mean, maybe I'm starting to repeat myself, I don't know. But a lot of the characters in Geo Disaster, although they never say Semper Paratus, that is very much their mindset. I live in Los Angeles. This is a city that's overdue for a massive earthquake.
Yeah.
And most people here seem utterly oblivious to that. And, so I try and do my little gospel, spreading the word, sort of. That you got to be ready. What's going on? Oh no! Hang on. We got to introduce the world to somebody.
All right.
So,
always
this is Ripley. Ripley, look over there.
Hello, Ripley.
Okay, well.
Well, it was nice seeing Ripley's brief, but definitely much appreciated appearance.
If you look real closely in Sharknado 3 in the army base scene, you can see me and Ripley running in the distance.
Whoa, I did not know that. That's really cool. Okay.
We had a bigger moment, but Anthony cut it out. That bastard.
Nah. Well, maybe one day Ripley can have a cameo. Bring him on. Wait, is Ripley a boy's name or a girl's name? I should know this.
Boy. He's a boy.
All right, bring him on set. Good times.
Actually, he was on set for one day on Geo Disaster, but there was the stuff we were shooting that day. There was no way to use him. So. Oh well.
What is the most rushed or stressful moment you've had on set with filming a movie?
Actually, I think that just happened on Geo Disaster. It was the last day of shooting. We had to get this hilltop to shoot the last scenes of the film, and the sun was going down, and there was some screw up that we didn't have. I guess in our rush we had not properly scouted the roads to the top of the hill, because it was just a dirt trail, and none of our production trucks could get up it.
Oh no!
And so we were scrambling to get to figure out. Okay, well, some of the crew has SUVs, 4-wheel drives. Let's bundle all the equipment into that and drive up this dirt trail to this hilltop to shoot it. And we had 2 pretty big scenes to shoot in like half an hour as the sun was going down, and we were going to lose the light. And trying to figure out how to get all that done and then get up there. And there was a costume change because there was one scene that happens a month later. And so the cast had to go up there where they're at the end of the disaster and they're all dirty and bloody and, their clothes are messed up. And they had to shoot that scene, and then they had to quickly get cleaned up and change into their 1 month later clothes and makeup and everything. And of course there were no changing rooms, so they were like taking turns going into one of the cars, and we threw some towels over the windows, and we're talking about teenage girls here, and it's like, okay, so we gotta protect them. And yeah, that was a pretty crazy moment. And if we didn't get it, it was a place that we had paid a lot of money to be, and if we didn't get it, I didn't think we'd be able to go back. And so trying to get all that in like the last half hour of daylight, that was pretty crazy and stressful.
I mean, what can I say? Welcome to the asylum.
Yeah, really. Well, I mean, every asylum shoot is like that. When you're making a film in 10 or 15 days, the whole time is like that. It's incredibly stressful. And on a bigger studio film, you might judge your success by how good it was. And on an asylum film, you judge your success by, did I shoot everything in the script?
Mm.
I mean, there was a day on American warships where we were shooting down in the engine room, I think,
Hmm.
and we still had one scene to get with Johanna Watts and Mario Van Peebles talking. They're walking through the corridors in the ship and talking about what was going on. And the producer came in and said, "Okay, I'm pulling the plug. You have to go. We're at our deadline. They're kicking us out of the battleship."
Wow.
And I was like, "But I still have this scene to shoot. And what do I do?" And so it occurred to me, well, we still have to walk out. We're at the lowest level of the battleship. We have to walk through all these corridors and go up the stairs and do all this just to get out. So I said, "Okay, we're done. We're cutting. We're wrapped. Let's all leave. But keep the camera rolling, and we're going to do this scene as they walk out."
Oh, that's
And so
hilarious.
that's how this one long walk and talk in American warships happened in one take as we were walking out of the battleship.
Man, I'll have to look out for that scene the next time I watch that film and try and find which one it is. That is incredible. Wow. Okay, I just have two more questions. Uh,
It's okay, I could talk about myself all day.
all right, maybe three then. There are a few potential ones. One of them's kind of silly, and it's just a trend I've noticed with a couple of your
Why would
films.
why would anyone ask me a silly question?
Who knows? Okay, what's the obsession with glow sticks? I mean, you have a part with them in American warships, and then in AE Apocalypse Earth, there are glow sticks.
I don't think I'm obsessed with them. I don't even remember using them in American warships. I mean,
I
in
think it
AE,
was when
it was
I think
in
in
AE. Go ahead.
sorry, I think in American warships, it was when some of the people were about to go out and try and find the alien ship, and it was like getting dark, and one of the higher ups just threw some like glow sticks on the floor.
Right. Yeah. Well, that was just. I mean, that was a safety thing. They were going out in the dark, so attach a glow stick to yourself in case you fall into the ocean.
Yeah.
Because they do that. In AE, it was kind of a plot point
Mm.
because if I just had, they had to find these light sources on a ship a spaceship that had been sitting there, for 300,000 years. And if I'd had a flashlight with batteries, those batteries would have had to have been dead and corroded, and the flashlight wouldn't have worked.
True.
So I needed to have a light source, and I figured, well, maybe we'll believe that the chemicals in the glow sticks would still be intact because plastic lasts forever, right? So I sort of bought that those would work even 300,000 years later.
Well, that makes sense. It was just a
There are no glow sticks in Geo Disaster, so.
you should have kept it as like a running trend in all your film. You gotta have them glow sticks.
Yeah.
Okay, and this is just another trend I've noticed with your films that I'm a bit curious about. Yes, I'm a nerd. What can I say? In two of your films, 200 miles per hour, which I know you only wrote, but and Sharknado, you have a character called Claudia. Is there like any reason for that name?
Yeah, um, Claudia is a character in a script I wrote about 15 years ago called 2176. It's a big science fiction epic, and it's sort of my dream project, and someday I'm going to make it. And the female lead in that film is named Claudia Navarre. And since I haven't gotten to make that film, I keep using that name in other scripts. I mean, that's about it. I've never known anyone named Claudia. It's nothing like that.
Oh yeah, that makes sense. I think I've heard you mention that you mentioned that sci-fi epic in something else before. But yeah, hopefully one day you'll be able to make that. And then
Yeah.
one final question. It's Sharknado related. Who's your favourite character out of April or Nova? Or who do you
No.
think would be, like realistically, a better fit for Finn Shepard?
Well, I'll tell you, one of the it's interesting because when I wrote the first movie, the idea was that April was sort of a stand-in for my ex. And the idea going in was that Finn and April would discover that despite all the trouble they'd had, they still worked well together, they still clicked together, they had chemistry, and they would rediscover what made them work over the course of the film. And in the script, that's how it went. And then when I didn't direct it, and when Tara was cast, she and Anthony took a slightly different direction with her character. And so that was kind of lost. But as I was writing the script, I was falling in love with Nova because she was just so cool.
Yeah.
And the truth is that she is probably awesome.
Yeah, carry on. Sorry.
Awesome. The truth is that Nova has probably become my favorite character. And one of my great disappointments with number 4, and it's even possible that this was another factor in me not doing 5, I suppose, is that I was finally exploring Finn and Nova's relationship. Because, Finn thought April was dead. And had been for, 5 years, basically. And so it was finally an opportunity to do something really interesting between Finn and Nova and start to develop that. And then just when we think, their relationship is about to meet fruition, April reappears. Yeah. And so that, to me, that was the most interesting thing in number 4. And then when Cassie Skirbo wasn't able to do the film, that got rewritten at the last minute without me, basically, because it happened so late in the process. And so her character became Gemini, became the cousin, but all that relationship stuff had to come out.
Right.
And that was disappointing for me because a lot of people, a lot of the fans talk about Finn and Nova, and I've always wanted to explore that. And this was the one opportunity to do that without betraying Finn's love for April, which is really what the whole series is about. And so when we didn't get to do that, that was kind of disappointing.
Yeah.
But I'm working on something. We'll see if anything ever happens with it. But I'm working on another project that might do more with Nova. So we'll see.
Okay, that's interesting.
Don't tell anybody.
I won't, even though I guess the people who watch this video will be speculating. But yeah, I definitely see that about Gemini, because come to think of it, she did have a lot of Nova tendencies in the 4th film, so I definitely see that. But yeah, I think that is all the questions I have done. So yeah, thank you so much, Thunder, for taking the time to do this.
Sure, thank you, and thanks for saying I'm your favorite Asylum filmmaker.
It's true. So yeah, just thank you for making the movies. Keep it up, and yeah, really, you are an inspiration to myself, who is an aspiring filmmaker myself.
Keep at it, and thank you for watching. Because if people didn't watch these movies, we wouldn't get to make them.
True. Well, hopefully others keep watching, especially Geo Disaster, which I think comes out on the 3rd of October. Is it? I'm not sure.
That's what they're saying at the moment. I have not heard anything that will change that. So
right,
should be the beginning of October.
Right. So yeah, thanks a lot for the interview, Thunder Levin, and I hope you have a great rest of your day.
Sure. Thanks. You too, Barry.
All right. Thanks a lot. Bye.
Bye.
So, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Be sure to let me know what you think in the comments below, and I shall see you guys next time. Bye!